Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Total Disruption. I am Dr. Jake Clendenning, and on behalf of my partner, the Michael Labersi, we got a great friend of the show today. I am really excited to talk to Carol Williams today. Not just because Carol has a name I can easily pronounce and probably not get wrong. That's a big piece. I was excited about that this morning, but Carol's got a great story, and we've got some cool stuff to talk about. We had a conversation the other day that we took off on some ideation that I'd love to roll out there, see what else she's got going on. But that said, Carol, tell the audience who we are today. What are we talking about?
Sure. Yeah, you asked me to introduce myself. So I would like to introduce myself as the creator of the Beacon of Light Center. And why is that important? I think it's important because we want to keep our eye on the higher prize. So the mission of the Beacon of Light Center is to spread love, light, and joy through the world. That's kind of big. But then who am I and why is that important? Well, I'm somebody that had no idea how to run a business when I got laid off in '09. So I created and recreated and reinvented and fell down and almost drowned several times. And I'm here to tell you a lot or a little about one or two of those stories. And what I do right now in the Beacon of Light Center is I really specialize with women leadership coaches to help them level up without burning out. I think that's enough for now.
there's plenty to get into. There's plenty to get
Yeah,
into. I was actually it's funny you mentioned the layoff in '09, and you made the decision to roll into entrepreneurship and make, to do something to have an impact.
yeah.
I was reading an article this morning actually that was talking about this huge lead in right now, particularly with women, which I find also interesting, of shifting from when they get laid off, because there was what, a
Mhm.
million layoffs in November, end of the fiscal year. We see it in the fourth quarter almost every year. There's a huge amount of layoffs. And so it prompted this article to write about how they're not going back into the working for someone space, that they're shifting into entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
To your point, you've been rolling down this road since '09. This is if we think about the universe works in cycles and everything repeats itself and does the same thing. The article is just bringing it front and center again. Of hey, this is a thing that is, I think, continually going on. I think people look at what they're doing, if they aren't meeting their true potential, not walking their, just cause, whatever the thing is going to be, that they're making the decision of, I can't do that in the standard 9 to 5 job.
Mm.
I've got to reach out and I've got to have a substantial amount of courage to step out and do this on my own, to do that. And I say that on purpose.
Mhm. Mhm.
Of it takes a monster amount of courage to step away from that 9 to 5 thing. And so many people think, well, why would I step away from that consistency, that guaranteed paycheck? There's
Mhm.
a million people last month that would disagree with you on that, that all of a sudden don't have that. So I know I didn't ask a question in there, um, at all about, just I was reading that article. I found that fascinating this morning based on this conversation. So you're what you're doing is a calling. What you're doing is a calling, and you've got a very specific, I think niche is not a big enough word, but we're going to use it anyway, of where your head's at with what you're doing. So like, talk to me about the beacon of light. Like, what is it, so
Yeah.
that they know.
Thank you so much, Jake. I have been working on that aspect of my work since 2018, 19, somewhere in that area. Before that, I was doing other things which we're not going to talk about, all related. But sometimes I want to say this is kind of a key point for anybody who only has 10 minutes to listen and hear. And that is that we're going to always continually evolve. The idea you have at the beginning is not going to be the idea you have in like 10 years or even 5 years, right? So that is important. What is the Beacon of Light Center? The Beacon of Light Center is a place, a physical place, or places, because we talked about this before, hit the record button, where where coaches, helpers, and healers can come and do their great work. That's it. Now, the place that I live, I believe it to be a sacred piece of ground and water. It used to be inhabited, by Native Americans. I live on Pennacook Road, which is a pretty Native American name, and when I visualized the Beacon of Light Center at first, it was right here on this property. However, I have a relatively small lot and it's on a lake with a lot of zoning regulations. So we have the small matter of acquiring property, changing zoning, totally redoing things. So what I decided was, you know what? I'm going to do my great work here. I'm going to be inspired, and this is Command Central. However, what I will do is I will start to create subsets of the Beacon of Light Center all over the world. And the first one is in Costa Rica, because we just invested in a dome as part of a retreat center in Costa Rica.
Awesome. I love dome spaces. There it is. I sure there's a pile of science around why the dome is important, and I get that. But I mean, if you've not hung out in a dome space, I mean, I'm not talking like the Astro Dome for a baseball game. I'm talking like a dome space, whether it be a greenhouse, whether it be a larger space for retreats. Somebody has a dome home. The spaces are cool. There's just something. Well, and the intention behind it is it's an infinite space. There are no corners, there are no shadows, there is
Correct.
no dark space in it. That's why yurts are so customarily in ancient culture. I mean, you look at Mongolia. That culture has run yurts, or gurs as they're called, forever, because it's a bit of a spiritual space that
Right.
they actually operate in. They make their home that spiritual space. But I know I digress. I'm totally going off the rails on that. But I love dome spaces. It's super cool that you're doing that. So that's awesome. So when would you predict? Because as we know, things are going to be evolutionary. Our plan today of, hey, here we're in Costa Rica, we put the dome, here we go. That's today's plan. So today's plan, when is that particular retreat center going to be operational?
Oh, okay, great. So um, it will be operational at the end of the year. The people are just completing the dome is complete, and now they have to do the surround. There's two domes, and they have to do the surround with the plunge pools and underground sauna. So all that's getting done, and that ought to be complete. People can stay there at the end of the year, okay? But then what's going to happen is the landscape, they call it the landscaping, that doesn't do it justice. It's beautiful. It ties it all together, okay? And the prediction for that is the end of April. And myself and my family are going to be going to Costa Rica at the end of March to stay in the domes and experience them with the people who actually own the land and the retreat center, and we are part of that project, right? So and then I'll be going on an investor retreat sometime in 26. We're figuring out when that is. And did that answer your question?
It does. I mean, so what's going to be the first event? Like, obviously, you and your family are going to experience
Oh,
to really
yeah, yeah.
understand it. So first event that if you wanted people to say, put it in your calendar,
Yeah,
we're going to do this.
right. Yeah, I don't have the answer to you right now. I think I what I've learned actually, kind of a little bit goes into 5 minutes ago, is that when I get too far ahead of myself, I start to panic. So I
Mhm.
know for sure we're going there in March. I know for sure I'm going to a investors retreat. And then I'll figure it out. But what I know is that I've had three people in the last 2 months say, Carol, I want to go to your next retreat. So I said, okay, I guess I'm going to be doing that. So my next retreat will not be in Costa Rica. My next retreat will be here in New Hampshire. It just won't be in my back space the way it was in October. I'm going to go to a different place that is a center that's really gorgeous. It just isn't on my property because there is a demand for this. I believe that I loved being online in COVID, to be honest with you, but I think people are tired of that. They really
Hmm.
want to be in person. So, and so it shall be. If you are ready to come from, around the country and or around the world to have a, leadership retreat with a spiritual component, pretty strong spiritual component, um, beautiful. But I don't, unfortunately, I don't have like, oh, you can sign up and it's going to be, you know, in November. Is that like, I just don't have that right now. I'm not, but I'm getting there, one step at a time.
Yep. So I mean, so the place for people to watch for when this is going to happen is unscatterme.com.
That's right.
Unscatterme.com.
Yeah.
Watch that website for updates
Yeah.
on when, how the build's going in Costa Rica, what's going on, when is Carol doing her next event, where's the next event going to be. So keep an eye at unscatterme.com, and you can, of course, you can connect with Carol there as well.
Yeah.
But watch that for updates. So I wanted to make
Yeah.
sure the
I will say
audience knew
that.
about that.
Yeah, thank you. I will say this that on my YouTube channel, I've got a video series about the spiral in the backyard and so on. It's all being done very organically because I'm kind of sailing the ship in my coaching practice while I'm building this bigger thing in the background. It's kind of both happening at the same time. So that's what's going on.
Yeah. So there's you kind of alluded to this a little bit, and this was a question that we were talking about asking you is how you're thinking expansively and yet you're staying grounded. Now we alluded to this a little bit as far as not getting too far ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
So how do you do it? How are you thinking expansively and still staying
Yeah, good
grounded?
question. So there's kind of two parts, right? So there's the expansively part. And for me, within that, there are two parts. So for me, what I need to do daily, weekly, is have my daily practices that keep me grounded. And before we turned on this recording, we talked about how you stay connected spiritually, right? And I think the how is less important than the fact that we do it. You do it your way. I do it with kind of candles and pillows and some meditation and some gratitudes and some cards and some journaling and sometimes I color. I a little bit change it up um day to day because if I did all my practices every day I wouldn't start work until noon, okay, and I have
Hmm.
things to do. So I do that to stay grounded and centered and remember myself and remember my mission and what I want to do. And then on the other side of thinking expansively, it's being surrounded by people who invigorate you and support you. So I've got kind of two main masterminds, with this third one, this investor mastermind sort of coming up, but I don't know those people yet. So I belong to a worldwide group called The Conspiracy, and it's The Conspirators, run by Michael Bungie Stainer out of Canada, Toronto. And the idea is that you have got a worthy goal. And in my case, Beacon of Light Center, expansion, creation, all of that, that helps me move forward. And the people that I meet with twice a month, we help support one another in our worthy goals. Okay, that's one, and then the other one is I belong to Polka Dot Powerhouse, diamond level, small group mastermind, same thing but different. It's a lot more tactical. It's a lot more, okay, what are you doing this week? How can I support you? That kind of thing. So that's the thinking expansively. And then the staying grounded is a lot. I'll go back to the journaling and the candles and the cards and the pillows and the gratitudes. I'll add to it, even though this is like, well, of course, Carol, I know I have to, stay moving but how often when we get really busy and especially really busy doing the things like that we love, like the world just kind of like the world burns to the ground. You could still be like at your desk, like figuring something out, all hunched over, not having eaten in 5 hours. That's an exaggeration, but we need to make sure we nourish ourselves. And when we nourish ourselves and force ourselves outside, touch the grass, the snow, and breathe the air and you know, go like this instead because we're all hunched over all the time. Those are both important, and we want to be doing those both on a regular basis.
Yeah, a little technical difficulties there. Sorry about that, guys. Um, we had a moment, but yeah. So back to where we were. So something that I want to touch on here, and you said it a couple times, and I talk about this every time I speak. I start this. This is how I start it. You said gratitudes. In my opinion, and I'll get calls. Fine, bring them on. I do not think there is a single better tool in the toolbox to staying grounded than gratitudes. I don't think it exists. There's all kinds of great ones that are out there, but I think the best one is gratitudes, and there's a neuroscience component to it. Your brain cannot be truly grateful and grumpy in the same space. Cannot happen. Can't do it. That
100.
is why. Yes, that's why it's such a critical piece. And from a spiritual standpoint, and we're not talking about, you know, massive gratitudes, world peace and, peace there and this great thing. We're talking about, that was a great sunrise. What a great cup of coffee that was. What a great conversation with Carol this is. Like,
Absolutely.
very simple gratitudes. That's what I want to say about them is simple gratitudes because it keeps you present. What am I thankful for right now? What am I grateful for today? It keeps you grounded in that space. So I didn't want to undermine that. Like Carol sets her space up beautifully in order to then do the gratitudes. I do my gratitudes before I roll out of bed. I mean,
Hmm.
before I open my eyes, that's the first thing I
Hmm.
do. What am I grateful for right now? And
Yeah.
it's a great state reset. Use it all day. Every time you're feeling the, buried next to the keyboard doing the
Yeah.
thing, like stop, take the moment and say, what am I grateful for? That's a brilliant question to ask your mind because it's a great state reset. I think it's a genius tool, and I did not want to like let that go by as it's just a thing that we do because it's so amazingly important, in my opinion. Again,
The other thing you could do if you're grumpy is skip, like skips,
yes,
like
movement.
a child will skip, because you
Hmm.
cannot stay grumpy if you skip.
No, you can. Well, for those that have not skipped in a good long time, I won't call it decades or anything. You're going to have to do the mechanics. You're going to have to walk it through in your mind of how am I going to do this and not eat dirt. Like, which if you fall and you eat dirt, it's good for you too. Like, it's good for, all kinds of good things in dirt you can eat, lots of minerals and things. But from that perspective, yes, your brain, you can't. Like, if you're skipping, think about it. Like, have you ever seen a kid skipping down the street that wasn't smiling? Never. Not one time. Carol's right. Love that. Yeah, skip, gratitudes, like good stuff like that. There's a lot of people are like I'll go to the gym and I'll grind it out, I'll lift weights and I'll do all the heavy things. Well, you can, and that does do some chemical, releases some endorphins, does a little dopamine charge, does those things, and that's cool. But think about the playful side, skipping. If you see, go shoot a basketball, like go hit a volleyball. I wouldn't say go hit a golf ball. I see more people on the golf course irritated than not. So I mean, but do something playful.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree with that. Something playful. So I love the skipping. That's genius. Jump rope.
I have
Jumping rope is another one.
I have one more for expansive if we have time for that.
We do.
Okay. The other thing that I do, and we're still playing with how often this is, but I go on two kinds of retreats. I go on my own solo creative retreat, and I go on what I'm going to choose right now to call the Beacon of Light Center / partnership retreat. So my life partner, who's also my dance partner, is also my partner in Beacon of Light Center. Okay. And so literally today at 2 p.m. my time, we're going to go for our quarterly retreat. And it's going to be a combination of enjoying one another, getting away from our home space and our office spaces, and looking at the future and thinking big and putting pins in things and also getting, also getting some details together, financial details, like a lot of little, and enjoy, like, so we spend we used to do 2 nights. Now we're amping it up. Now we have 3 nights because it's really juicy to be able to have those 3 nights. And anyway, I feel like when we're away from our space, it creates this whole other situation. So what I offer for people to come and, pay me good money for their experience, we also do in our own experience.
As well, you should, and that's absolutely the truth because it's proof in the pudding, right?
Right.
It's that space so that you're doing something. There's a whole ton of marriage counselors out there that talk about doing this, and they talk about a troublemaker in this that you're creating a solution for, and it's the business of together. It's the business of marriage. The day to day, we're in our space. We come home from work. You've got the I got to wake up. I got to take the kids to school. I got to be here. I got to go to work. I got to come home. I got to make dinner. I got to do the dishes. I got to do the laundry, and it's this systematic. It becomes a job,
Mhm.
and there's this business aspect to it,
Yeah.
and to remove yourself from the space, because the space, what you're doing is you're actually creating an anchor system in the space. When you step into the kitchen, you feel a certain way. You touch the fridge, you feel a certain way. You're creating this business mentality in the space. So when you remove yourself from the space and you allow yourself to go elsewhere, and you have to schedule it. Everybody's like, no, I want it to be totally organic. I'm going to challenge you the first time. Until you get good at it, you need to practice it. So you're going to have to schedule, okay, from these 2 hours, we're going to talk business stuff. We're going to talk money. And then we're not again.
Right.
And, these 3 hours, we're going to just think big. We're going to think cool stuff, where we want to travel, and, who do we want to see? Who do we want to be? You got to kind of, unfortunately, organic comes later after the practice. Like,
Yes.
schedule it, figure out how to do it well so that you come back, you're like, that was awesome. Because if you try to do it organically, you're setting yourself up for a potential, not saying it's going to happen, for a potential car wreck in there. So yeah, you've got to have a plan going into it. So I totally agree with that. I absolutely think it's brilliant. So I want to touch on something real quick that we talked about
Sure.
before we run out of time in the last 2 minutes here.
Sure.
So there are a lot of wonderful business owners, individuals, coaches, teachers, trainers, professionals that are doing retreats, that are doing beautiful, brilliant work at retreats. And a lot of people who have the ability to do amazing works don't have the space to be
Mm,
able to do it. So Carol and I were brainstorming the other day, and this is I'd love for you guys to reach out to her and you guys have this conversation. This is not a field I'm going to dive into, but I think it's a brilliant opportunity. If you think in the vacation rental space, I actually said it right this time instead of naming it by one of the websites because I got in trouble by somebody that's in the vacation rental space. If
ah,
you think vacation rental space, so if you then think, okay, VRBO or Airbnb, there's a cool website that you can go on that you can go, I'm going to go on a vacation and my spouse and I are going to take a retreat. So I just need a house kind of thing. What if that thing existed for retreat centers? What
mhm,
if Carol's space for Beacon of Light was on this, that you could go and hold your retreat there? And one in Australia was there, and one in UK was there, and New Hampshire was there, and California, and the desert, and all these cool places all got on there that you could go and do basically a vacation rental retreat space. What if all these amazing people got together as retreat space owners, not hotel owners, but like cool space in Costa Rica with domes? That's cool. That's retreat space. But if you guys all got together and you put this together such that you could share the spaces, that you could take, if you could trade them, do it, like there's such a cool opportunity there to reach more people and impact more people and give more opportunity for people to impact people. In that, we were talking about this, I thought it was brilliant. Did I miss anything in that, Carol?
Oh, no. Oh, no. And so, Dr. Jake, make no small plans, right? I mean, that's just kind of thinking expansively, taking one micro step at a time. And that's what it's all about, and I just think we got to keep going on things so that it's not someday. And we also have to not say, "Ooh, in exactly 1 year, it has to be exactly this, so help me." Because what happens there is if our goals are way up here, which is wise, and we get to here, we think we failed. We haven't failed. Look, we got to here. We used to be down here, but that's how people are, right? So, no, I think you've got it. And I think just planting that seed and having, somebody who that really resonates with to get on my website, get to my contact information, carol@unscatterme.com, having a conversation with me. I would love it. Coming to one of my events, whatever it is, that'd be great.
Awesome. Carol, thank you so much for being part of the show today. Really appreciate you. Unscatterme.com. Carol Williams. I am Dr. Jake Clendenning. On behalf of Michael Labersi, it is your turn to disrupt.